Button is hit. We should be good. Let's see. Let's see. Talk to me. Talk to me. Talk to me. We good? Okay, there you go. Wait for it to click. I'm trying to make for it to click. Oh, there you go. We are live. We are live. We good to go. All right, man. All right, we good to go. I'm gonna wait for a second, see if we get some people in here. I got a couple things I'm gonna be reacting to. And if nobody gets in here, I'm just gonna react and record, and people can watch it later. I did got my breakfast. I'm gonna eat a little bit though, y'all. Don't mind me. I thought I had my camera good, but I ain't feeling the angle right now. There you go. That's perfect. All right. I'm gonna wait like another 30 seconds, and then I'm gonna get going. And like I said, people can rewind, and it'll save to the channel so people can watch it later. Let me share it on my Facebook. All right, let's see. Let's see what. All right, let's see. That's because I'm on my phone. I didn't know. We got people in here watching. If so, we can get cracking. I'm trying to. I was just sharing it right now. All right. All right, man. I want to do something different this weekend. I've been busy traveling, really, and catching up on work and stuff. So I was like, hey man, instead of us doing like a video, let's do or let me instead of me going to record, let me do a live. And it's something I kind of want to do more often. Not instead of a video, like doing both. And so just jumping into doing a live today, and got some videos queued up. I'm gonna react to them. And mostly it's like today is all about, like the title says, like how to choose a leader. We got a lot of people have already voted. The official vote day is Tuesday, November 5th. And so I'm making this the Saturday before. And so I kind of wanted to talk through like what choosing leaders looks like and why we should choose each leader. I got some videos queued up where they talk about why we should vote for Kamala or Trump, why we shouldn't vote for Kamala or Trump. And we got a video from Obama that's pretty interesting. But first, I want to talk about like leadership in more of a broad, kind of high level sense. And so uh, the kind of, let's say, goal of any excellent leader is to put the people who follow you in a better position, right? And so, like anybody who's following anybody, you're following them because you believe they give you and others the best chance to achieve a certain goal, whether that be professionally, whether that be spiritually, like as far as like going to a specific church or things like that, or even relationally, like if you're submitting wives, if you submit to a husband, it's because you are confident in his ability to lead you and your family into a better place. And so the like really basic definition of leadership, it really is like, hey, who gives me the best chance to achieve X, Y, and Z, and who do I trust with that process, with that journey? Because it's twofold. Gotta give me the best chance, but I also gotta trust you that you'll be able to deliver on the things that you're saying. And so um I'm trying to, like I said, look at each candidate from like a leadership standpoint, and they are very different leaders. Like Kamala Harris is a politician. She's a career politician coming out of California. She was a DA, and then she kind of moved through the ranks. She ran for president before. A lot of people don't remember that, but she ran last uh, last time against Biden before Biden was president. Kamala was running for the Democratic vote, and she lost very early on. But she went through kind of the route that almost all of our presidents have gone, which is serving in a different political office, um, going through the conventions, rubbing elbows with the right people, and then attempting to get this kind of vote. Like she even was vice president before she got this kind of nod from the Democratic Party to run for president. And I think that there's some good and some bad with that. One of the good is like one of the best ways to be good at something is to practice it. And so presidents are politicians. Practicing politics can make you a better president because you're learning how to work with others, how the system works from the inside. You're learning how what not to say, who not to say it to. You get media trained. If you see Kamala talk, she's super media trained, and that just means like she's given effort on what to say, how to say it, so that she can get the response she wants. All of those things kind of play a role in helping you be a better politician and ultimately a better president. Some of the bad is like I think most people have a distrust of politicians. I'm almost there. I feel like most people have a general distrust of politicians. Oh shit! Come on, camera! Don't do this to me. Now this mother want to ask that. Oh, there you go. There you go. All right. I think most people have a general distrust of politicians, and so because of that, there we see uh, people don't want like that's one of the reasons. That's one of the things Trump said all the time his first race. I ain't really heard it this time because he can't say it because he's president, but he was like, "Hey, why not give somebody who's not a politician a chance to be president?" And a lot of people gravitated towards that because we are tired, I believe, of like what politicians say, what they do, and we're tired of kind of that game. And so we were like, hey, we want somebody who's not been a part of that game, who don't play that game, to see how they get lead in office. And so, excuse me, thank you. I'm glad I got the angle. Thank you. Kamala is not the anti-politician. She is the politician's politician. And so that's kind of what's working against her in a lot of people's eyes. I've seen a lot of people like say, like, when she talked, they just feel like she's disingenuous, like she's playing a game. They even talk, like, I've seen some clips where she got like a fake accent, which I think is hilarious. But a lot of people just don't like stuff like that. And so, but about Trump, like, he's not a politician at all. And so that's one of his benefits is the common person who has no interest in being a politician can look at Trump and be like, hey, he's like me. Even though he's never been like any of us. Like, he was born into a rich family. He always says, I pulled myself by my own bootstraps. My dad only gave me $1 million to start my company. Like, he's not like us, but because he's not a politician, we feel like there's not the same gap between us. And you see that at his rallies. You see that with the people who follow him. They will say all the time, Trump is not a politician. He says it like it is. He gives it to you straight. He wants to get the job done. He's not worried about playing all these different games. And so that plays into his kind of benefit long term, or benefit right now, if people want to choose a leader. They're like, I want to choose someone who's not been, let's say, tainted or poisoned by being a politician. And some of the cons is he don't really know how this works. Like, you saw this the first go around, and even this time, you can see he says stuff sometimes, he does stuff sometimes that someone who's a politician wouldn't do, that are detrimental to his campaign. And for some reason, honestly, I think that actually makes him more likable to a lot of people who are thinking about voting for him, because they're like, see, look, he's honest about his mistakes. He's upfront about his mistakes. He don't have secrets, because that's the general consensus. Like, all politicians got these crazy secrets, and they're like, Trump don't have those, even though Trump just got booked on a felony case in New York from secrets he had years ago. People don't. It's not the same, because those are business secrets. Those are like business criminal stuff, not politician secrets. It's just what has happened as far as the narrative surrounding them. And so I think, as far as like the four leadership perspectives, I would say Kamala is probably more of a voice leader, or yeah, I would say Kamala is more of a voice leader, and then Trump is more of a royalty leader. Like, if you notice, like, Trump's campaign, his rallies, there's 100% a culture to it, and he's the leader of that culture. And then you see Kamala, like, the way she's leaning to the Divine Nine and kind of the minority vote, and she seems to be more so concerned with the people at large and trying to be a spokesperson for them. Her being the first minority woman to win a Democratic nod. Shout out to Shirley Chisholm. She got votes, but she didn't get the nomination. I think plays is part of that as well. So, but let's jump into some of these videos I got up. I have Kamala's closing argument. I'm just gonna jump into it, and we're gonna watch a little bit of it, and then I will respond to it. Where is it? Here it is. All right, so we should be here, and let me know if you're hearing it.
The fear and division. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America.
Let me show you how we do stuff around here. Actually, my department uses Monday.com, so I'm good. The work management tool.
Now,
so I'm gonna pause there. It's interesting that it seems to be, and I've seen a lot of people comment on this, And there's some tension between Kamala being a breath of fresh air and Kamala being part of the old regime, because she is the first minority woman who has a real chance to win president, which would be completely different than anything we've ever seen in America. But at the same time, she's been vice president for almost 4 years, right? And so it's like, how much of a breath of fresh air is she, and how much of a continuation of Joe Biden's kind of presidency is she? And I don't really know. The issue is most people don't know what vice presidents do. Vice presidents don't really have a lot to do. They're really more ambassadors and fail safes. Like they don't really get to make their own initiatives. They don't get to really make their own policy. They get to vote. So that's one thing you can look at if you're interested in seeing like how Kamala Harris has voted over the past 4 years. You can see that's public record, but they don't really get an opportunity to do their own thing. And they kind of got to keep them in the background, because if the president dies, they have to be alive, right? So that's something that's interesting. Like I remember when Barack was president, Joe Biden didn't do nothing. And I'm really trying to think right now live is who was the VP when Trump was president? Do y'all know? Does anybody know who the VP was when Trump was president? Because I can't think of them. But that's how the vice president's supposed to be, right? And so a lot of people are like, man, you ain't do nothing as vice president. They're not really supposed to do nothing, right? But that's interesting that she was like, I'm part of a new regime. That's an interesting take. Let's listen to a little bit more.
Look, let me say, I recognize this has not been a typical campaign. Even though I've had the honor of serving as your vice president for the last 4 years, I know that many of you are still getting to know who I am. Well, let me tell you, I am someone who has spent most of my career outside of Washington, D.C., so I know that not all the good ideas come from here. I am not afraid of tough fights against bad actors and powerful interests, because for decades, as a prosecutor and a top law enforcement officer of our biggest state, I won fights against big banks that ripped off homeowners, against for-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students, against predators who abused women and children, and cartels that trafficked in guns, drugs, and human beings. And I did this work because for as long as I can remember, I have always had an instinct to protect. There's something about people being treated unfairly or overlooked that frankly just gets to me. I don't like it. It's what my mother instilled in me, a drive to hold accountable those who use their wealth or power to take advantage of other people.
So this is interesting, and this is not just a Kamala thing. I think this is something that I see with the Democratic Party as a whole right now. Is like a cognitive dissonance. What I mean by that is their stance on the unborn versus their stance on the oppressed should be aligned, right? Like you just said, you just heard her say, like, I got something against people who are treated unfairly, who don't have an opportunity, who don't have opportunities, or who are being oppressed. But at the same time, she fully supports women unaliving their children, right? And so there's just a cognitive dissonance in that. And for me, and I'm not really today trying to tell you where to vote or who to vote for. I'm just more so taking it from a leadership standpoint. Sometimes as leaders, I think one of the most important things leaders can be is consistent. And so but it's hard to be consistent if you are pandering for, not pandering. Pander's not the word I want to use because that's kind of has negative connotation. If you are attempting to get votes, so what I see in politicians, one of the reasons why I struggle, why I think people struggle to see politicians as good leaders, is they are trying to get so many different votes, and so there's a different there's some overlap, but there's a different group of people that are worried about reproductive rights, then are worried about police brutality, are worried about economic inequalities. And so in an attempt to get both votes, you have to try to have stances that are opposed to each other. And I can just see that as being an issue with someone who's saying, hey, should I follow Vice President Kamala? I don't know. It's just something that I'm thinking about. All right, we're gonna watch a couple more minutes, and I got a few more videos to jump through. We're gonna go to the Rock video next.
The drive to protect hardworking Americans who aren't always seen or heard and deserve a voice. And I will tell you that is the kind of president I will be. And look, I'll be honest with you, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes, but here's what I promise you. I will always listen to you, even if you don't vote for me. I will always tell you the truth, even if it is difficult to hear. I will work every day to build consensus and reach compromise to get things done. And if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. So look, in less than 90 days, either Donald Trump or I will be in the Oval Office. Okay? On day one, and on day one, if elected, Donald Trump would walk into that office with an enemies list. When elected, I will walk in with a to-do list.
Okay, we'll stop there. I always think, I mean, and I get it, part of it is political theater. Part of it is political theater, like playing you should, like, who Trump is, who I am, like, that's part of it. I personally feel like leadership is, I trust leaders who talk about what they stand for and not who they're against a lot more, even though I know some people are looking, like, you know, the phrase enemy of my enemy is a friend. Like, people are looking, they are anti-things, anti-people. And so they do gravitate towards people who are anti those things or those people as well. I thought it was interesting, her saying, like, I'm not always been in DC. That's kind of what I just talked about like Trump using that, like, I'm not a politician kind of perspective. And you see her trying to use it too, like, to be like, hey, y'all, I'm not just a DC, but it's like, maybe, but I mean, you were in politics in California as well. Like, you were a DA, that's a politician. District attorney's got to be voted in case you didn't know. And so that's Kamala. You should watch the full speech. Everybody, I've seen a lot of good reviews from her closing argument. If you want to watch the whole thing, I just wanted to watch a snippet today. And so we're going to jump into the next video. This is Obama talking. And we'll kind of jump into what he says. Here it goes. All right.
When you have a choice that is this clear.
Oh, and so before I kind of fast forward a little bit, he's talking specifically to black men. So he has said, like, I've been on the campaign trail, I've been talking to people. They're saying black men ain't really voting for Kamala like that. And so this is his, like, kind of call out to that.
When on the one hand you have somebody who grew up like you, knows you, went to college with you, understands the struggles and pain and joy that comes from those experiences, who's had to work harder and do more and overcome and achieves the second highest office in the land and is putting forward concrete proposals to directly address the things that are vital in our neighborhoods and our communities, from housing to making sure that our mothers and our fathers and our grandparents can afford medicine, and making sure that we are dealing with prices that are too high and rents that are too high, and are committed to making sure that we maintain the Affordable Care Act, so everybody's got help and cares about things like education and entrepreneurship in our neighborhoods. And that's on one side. And on the other side, you have someone who has consistently shown disregard, not just for the communities, but for you as a person. And you're thinking about sitting out?
So yeah, that's it. I mean, that's basically Obama saying, hey, Kamala Harris is from where you from. She's from Oakland, she's from the Bay. She had experience like you did. She worked as hard as she could. She's achieved so much. You should vote for her. And also, he says you got policies that would impact you in a positive light. Which you should do your research on that. See your conclusion. I think something that's interesting is the parties often try to act like they are, how can I say this, the only option for you. And so the Democrats have been doing this since pre-Obama. But when Barack got voted in as the first black president, the Democrats acted like it was a trump card. No pun intended. But like it was a, I don't know another way to say that phrase. But they acted like, hey, we got you. You can't vote nowhere else. We got the first black president. You can't vote for nobody else. And I don't know. There's something to voting for people who look like you, who have similar experiences to you. My only issue is I feel like we all know somebody who's from where we from, who went through what we went through, and they don't act right. Like I think we all have people that we grew up with and went to our school, lived in our neighborhood, and then they move out or whatever, and then they not on what we on. Like they not worried about what we worried about. They're not concerned with what we concerned about. You've seen it on the internet, on Facebook. It's people that talk a certain way on Facebook that you're like, bro, we didn't grow up like that. Like you doing what? We ain't do that. And so I think there's some credence to, hey, they're from where I'm from. They grew up how we grew up. But there's also some like, bro, we know that don't mean that we all got a like interest. Because like honestly, you ain't been where we are in a long time. Like you the DA in California. You're not living how you was living in East Oakland. You're not, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you can still create a separation even though you have that background. And I think, but I mean, if I was Kamala, I would want Barack speaking on my behalf for sure. And if I was Barack, I would probably be speaking on behalf of Kamala, because when you look at Donald Trump versus Barack, they are almost complete opposites. And so it makes sense that Barack wouldn't want you to vote for Trump. And so I know a lot of black men was upset about that, but I think Barack is doing what he's supposed to be doing for the Democratic Party and doing what he thinks is best. Like, I think he honestly thinks Trump is a terrible option for black men And so, and black people in general, but specifically this clip was about black men. I think he thinks in his heart that Trump is not the right option, and that if you vote for Trump, you are, and he said abstain, because that's what a lot of people have said, is like, bro, I'm just not voting. And it's the same thing they said in the Biden-Trump election. People forget very quickly, but there's a lot of people who just decided not to vote because they were like, man, I think they both suck. And there's a lot of, and so Barack was like, bro, y'all can't do that, because he knows Kamala needs those votes to win. And so there's a part of it. But so now I'm gonna go to why it's a video that says why you shouldn't vote for Kamala. So those are two that said why we should. Here's one that says why we shouldn't vote for Kamala. And then, I'm gonna go to the one that says why not to vote for Donald Trump. And then we'll flip to look into the Kamala, the Donald Trump side. Because this, like I said, I'm not
experience it at some point. It's so important to me that I've actually been working on it in therapy. In fact, with the help of
I can be more presidential than anybody. I can be more presidential if I want to be.
There's a video when I was Trump. It was like a Rolling Stone, that magazine.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States.
Knock the crap.
Let's start there. So one of the things I don't, and this is why I say he's a royalty leader, because he leads a culture that wants to have an enemy. They want to have somebody to fight against, somebody to blame. And you see, like, and he's been doing this he did his presidency, first time he ran and all that. He's blaming immigrants for what's wrong with our country. And so to say, I'm not going to let any Muslims in the country, that is a crazy blanket statement, because if you know anything about geography and religion, you know Muslim does not mean they're from a certain place. It does not mean that they are a certain ethnicity. This is a religious ban, which is opposite of what America was kind of built on as far as a free religion country. And so I think to say something that unconstitutional but still have the support of so many people shows me that you are leading a culture and that they support that kind of rhetoric as well.
Crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees. I promise. Anyone who illegally crosses the border will be detained until they are removed out of our country and back to the country from which they came.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't mind that immigration. A lot of people think we do need to have tougher immigration. I think it depends on where you're from and who your friends are. I really do. I think that if you are from a certain place or you have a certain group of friends, you feel a certain way about immigration. And so I just think that's more not, I don't know if that's a leadership issue. I think that's a preference policy issue, but that's something that's interesting.
President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS.
You
get nothing. You know, it used to be to the victor belong the spoils. Now, there was no victor there. Believe me, there was no victor. But I always said, take the oil.
They said, what do you think about waterboarding? I said, I like it a lot. I don't think it's tough enough. Well, I think the only card she has is the woman's card. She's got nothing else going. And frankly, if Hillary Clinton were a man, I don't think she'd get 5% of the vote.
Well, first of all, you have a great governor who's doing a fantastic job, Rick Scott, on the Zika. Going to have it under control. He probably already does.
All right, so that video, I just thought it'd be cool to watch. It's kind of funny, but it just showed you what the people who aren't voting for Trump, like Rolling Stone is definitely a liberal magazine, liberal publication. The people who aren't voting for Trump, this is what they think about. This is the reason why they're not voting for him. And the biggest reason is character. They don't trust his character, which I think is a fair critique of him as a leader. They don't trust his character, and they don't trust that he cares about them, whether that be middle class, whether that be minority, whether that be different religion. They don't feel like he cares about them. And I think he has been open with those things in a way that allows him to have that stance. And so for people who are voting for Trump, who are like, how could you not vote for him? I think you get it. Like, I think people, if you really took a step back, I think you would understand why people aren't voting for him. Not saying that you should or shouldn't, but I think it's understandable to say, hey, this guy's X, Y, and Z. I can't support that. And so that's the Kamala Harris side. Kind of talk through her leadership, talk through some few things that she has going on. And now let's jump to the Trump side. Let's see why you should vote for Trump. And so I got a couple videos on that. I'll start with this video from Pence, his VP, and they're talking about he's in Michigan, and the question was, why should African Americans vote for you and Trump?
But without calling everybody up here, because I'm a politician, I don't like to share the microphone with anybody as much as I like him.
He had made a statement. He was like, "This is
what I think they would agree with is, number one, Donald Trump wants to bring back public safety and an economy that brings prosperity for everybody, good wages for good jobs. That's the Trump promise, and I think that's a great promise to Black families in Michigan.
No, that's a great point. And so I think what you're saying is true. I think a lot of people dismiss a lot of the truths that we've seen from Trump, a lot of things that he said. They'll say things like he's joking or obviously he's trolling, things like that, where it's like, nah, bro, that ain't obvious. Like, he said this so many times that he probably really believes this. And so I think you're right. They do vouch for him and they ride for him. And you see it at his rallies and things like that. So it's super interesting. You're 100% right.
Getting into everybody else. Here's something else. I mean, there is this idea in the media, and I don't know where it came from, that somehow Black Americans don't believe in public safety in this country. Well, we know whether you're Democrat, Republican, or independent, Black Americans do care about public safety in this country. They want to empower our law enforcement officers to do their job. Of course, do it respectfully and make sure we've got good relationships between police and community, but we can have a good relationship between police and the communities they serve while we lock up the violent criminals and keep everybody safe in the process. I think that's very possible. And look, I mean, the story of Black Americans, especially in the city of Detroit, is actually very similar to the story of Appalachian white Americans who came from West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. We moved to places like Detroit, Black and white together, because there were good jobs for people who were willing to work hard and play by the rules. And it wasn't always perfect, but for a generation in this country, people, Black and white, worked together, raised their families, built things in this country, and created prosperity for the entire country. And if you... That was the story, by the way, in the steel mill that my grandfather worked in for almost 40 years. You had Black folks and white folks living together, working together, and they again.
I think you're right. A lot more people would act like Trump in public if they thought they could keep their job. You're 100% right about that. So yeah, basically Vance. So, because I was trying to find videos, because my audience is predominantly African American, so I was looking for videos like, why should we vote for Trump? Not because you probably wouldn't be surprised, but most of the videos on why you should vote for Trump are just tons of white people. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not my audience. And so I was looking for some videos talking about why we should vote for him. And I thought that was a good video, because they said, why should Black, the comment was so interesting because it highlighted the question. It highlighted the tension and why Donald Trump doesn't necessarily thinks he need African American votes. Because the question said Detroit is 77% African American, Michigan is 14% African American. Why should African Americans vote for Trump Vance? And the reason I say why that highlights it is because there are pockets in the country where there are majority African Americans in cities, but there are not very many states where there are majority African Americans. And so Trump can win the election without getting a ton of African American votes because it's just not that many of us. And so, but if he gets some, then it's probably a guarantee Kamala's going to lose. And so, it's so interesting to hear Vance answer the question because he gives two things that are interesting statistics. And so I think in general, when you talk to most African Americans, there's a distrust of law enforcement. But when you check poll statistics, and I've done this before because I heard some people say, and I'm like, bro, that don't sound right. When you check poll statistics, the overwhelming majority of African Americans support police and support policing in our neighborhoods because they want safe neighborhoods. And so that is interesting that he would point that out because it is actually a true stat that majority of African Americans want policing done well. They want reform, but they want police and they just want them to act right, really. And then the second one is real. We want good jobs. And I think that, and it's so interesting because the Trump administration much more, the Trump campaign much more than the Kamala campaign treats African Americans like they're the same as other white Americans. They lump them in with poor white Americans. So if you notice, he says, hey, Detroit is just like West Virginia or Appalachian people in Kentucky and Tennessee. Well, if you know anything about the Appalachian people in Kentucky, Tennessee, they are on the lower income side historically and culturally. And so to say, hey, we know what you guys want because we know what poor white people want. It's just an interesting kind of conflation of groups. And so that's one reason why they said we should vote for him. And then I got a last video and then I'll close. I'll be going a long time. Thank you for hanging out with me today. This has been dope. I'm going to try to do some more of these. I've had a good time doing this. So I'm going to try to do some more of these here soon. But my last video is why you should not vote for Kamala. So let's jump into that.
And make way for President Kamala Harris.
I think the vice president would be a phenomenal president. I think she has the experience, the judgment, the leadership ability.
She is there and she is capable.
The campaign is underway to convince Americans that Kamala Harris has the experience and qualifications to be president, even though we all know Biden picked her as his running mate largely because she looked like the right kind of candidate. A woman of Black and Asian heritage, relatively young, the perfect foil to his old white maleness. What she was missing in substance, she made up for with a willingness to say things that young progressives.
Hey, so that's a funny thing. I think it's 100% true. Because if you remember, if y'all can remember, just close your eyes and think back to 2020. She ran a horrible presidential race. She was horrible in the debates, in her campaigning. She dropped out super early. And Biden picked her and everybody believed he picked her because she was the opposite of him and Trump. She wasn't old and white. And so that's funny because there's probably some truth to that.
It's like to hear.
Black lives have not been taken seriously as being fully human.
We have for generations now been defunding public schools, but yet militarizing police departments.
That's right.
She went on to bungle interviews, flip-flop repeatedly, and fail to own any issue or commit to anything.
Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
Biden had put Harris in charge of leading the administration's diplomatic.
That's funny. Hey, that's funny because hey, if you watch her give speeches, and like I said, I'm not telling you who to vote for, who not to vote for. She does that a lot, bro. Like she does that a lot where she talks for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and don't say nothing. Like it. For me, for someone who likes this and loves to teach and loves to like public, it is hilarious. Because it's like if you ever wrote a paper and you run out of words and you go back in and add sentences that just say the same thing, she talks like that, which, like I said, it's just funny.
Efforts to address the root causes of migration from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, as the White House put it. It was a stopping a seas from rising kind of job, says Cato Institute immigration analyst David J. Beer, especially since Harris had no authority to actually change U.S. immigration policy. Still, a vice president could at least play a robust rhetorical role here, shifting the conversation around the issue or rallying Democrats behind an inspiring message. But rather than outline a coherent policy vision, Harris made a series of awkward decisions and comments that angered many Democrats and gave fodder to Republicans.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't.
Harris, whose mom was born in India and whose
it's just like, bro, if you can't laugh at some of this stuff, and like I said, I don't vote who you want to vote for. I don't know where I'm voting on Tuesday, but that's funny. Like, that's funny, fam.
dad is from Jamaica, did eventually visit Guatemala, but then issued a disappointing statement for anyone hoping for a departure from Trump's immigration policies.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
If Harris runs for president, she can't point to her record as a prosecutor because it's mostly become an embarrassment. As San Francisco district attorney, she increased prosecutions and convictions for misdemeanor quality of life crimes and pushed for giving fewer people access to the city's drug court, which offers alternatives to incarceration. She opposed the prostitution decriminalization measure, helped federal officials raid immigrant businesses, head misconduct by a drug lab technician, and helped launch an anti-truancy initiative that would bring criminal charges against parents if their kids miss too much school. As California...
All right, y'all get it. I don't want to spend too much time just like, yeah, y'all get it. Yeah, man, I don't know. I think that for the people who aren't voting for Kamala, I think there's probably three major reasons. Is my camera? What's going on with my camera? Come on, man. All right. I think there's three major reasons people aren't voting for Kamala. I think, one, they don't trust her. And you saw just in that short video how many times she flip-flopped on different things. And then even her former job as a DA, a lot of people don't trust her track record as a DA, which is one of the reasons why she didn't dropped out so early in the race the first time in the president race in 2020. There was somebody who really went at her and her record as a DA, and it got ugly. And so she dropped out shortly after that. Second reason that that people don't want to vote for Kamala is they don't know where she stands. She's a politician, like a really good politician, and she does a lot of doublespeak where you catch her in different interviews in different environments, and she'll say different things, and people don't like that. And then the third reason is they think she's fake. As just being honest, they think she's fake, and so. I think that both sides have real reasons that are legitimate to the people who they want to vote for them. And I think they have real reasons for the people who don't want to vote for them. And so the question of leadership for me always comes down to who do you think gives because now you're not voting for somebody just for you. You're voting for somebody for the entire country. So who do you think in your best conscience gives the entire country an opportunity to be successful? Who do you think does that, right? And why do you think that they do that? And can you articulate that? Can you articulate that in a way that doesn't say, I just don't want to vote for this person? Because I literally was talking to my nephew the other day, and he was like, I'm not voting for Trump. And I was like, cool. Why would you vote for Kamala? Because it has to be, you have to want, to me, now some people disagree, but to me, if we're picking a leader, we have to pick someone we want, not pick against somebody we don't want. Like, I tell my wife this all the time. No, this is my last time I say, I'll get off. I'm like, hey, babe, what you want to eat? And she'll tell me all the things she doesn't want. And I'll go, hey, that doesn't help me figure out what you do want. Like, I need to know what you want. And so vote for the leader you want. Don't just vote for the leader you don't want. I've had a great time. I can't wait till the next time. We're going to be doing this a lot more often, man. I'm going to holler at y'all, man. Peace.